We're at Legacy Effects. We're here in the process of building Terminators. And once again, for me, this is a really neat thing because my first big movie, the first movie that I count, was the first Terminator. I've worked on all of them, and so it's quite an honor to be involved again with this. So what's pretty neat is to see the evolution of the technology that has gone into particularly creating these endoskeletons. And the rapid prototyping process and sculpting, digitally in the computer has given us a sense of symmetry and machine preciseness that is so different than how it was originally done when it was all sculpted by hand in clay, then molded, then all the pieces taken out, painstakingly hand sanded and redone. And you look back at it fondly because it was such an iconic character, but the precision and the cleanness and how we've created these things now is really remarkable.
When it comes to practical and creature effects, there is nobody that does a better job in our industry than Legacy. And the amount of love, respect, and brilliance that they brought to the project has been all of their work. Literally, there was no question to us that they had to be a part of this.
We were updating some of the look of some of our creatures. The T-800 endoskeleton is adapted a little bit, and they were so familiar with Arnold, which is a big part of it. He was the first fully body scanned actor, I think, way back when they were doing it last time, so they still have that around. And just the use of prosthetics on him was always kind of flawless, and a lot of talk about how much can you damage Guardian, how much can you damage Arnold, you hang on to the humanity in this creature. They already had a vocabulary for that because they'd been through it before.
This is the model that we received from client before any process. It's pretty elaborately modeled as is, but there's still a lot of stuff that is required to finish it to make it a viable, tangible object. This is the chest of the T-800, and it's basically broken down into logical parts for assembly. All the different colors represent the different parts that we have grown and how we've actually broken it apart for the process of building.
The final endoskeleton is made out of various kinds of epoxies and urethanes and rubbers, but that stuff is not self-supporting as far as strength goes. So we had to put a skeleton inside of that's mostly made out of precision machined aluminum. This would be the spine, the neck. This is where the skull of the endoskeleton goes. And this is one of his arms. We don't know whether they're gonna ever be used as puppets or not, but we like to set them up so that they could potentially be puppets, so all of these individual joints can lock off like a traditional rod puppet so that it could be performed on set if it needed to be.
So this is a special build for a stunt mask, but we did the full endoskeleton same way. Most of it was 3D printed in-house. I have up on the monitor right now the skeleton. It was real nice and satisfying actually being able to print something like this.
We're standing in the model shop. We do all the finish work on the rapid prototype parts that come off the beds. We do all the finishing of the parts as far as sanding the parts, sanding all the lines off the parts, prepping them for the molding process. And then once all these castings are done, they come back into here and the guys start doing a final assembly. And that's what Toy is doing here. He's taking the skull to the T-800 and he's cleaned it all up and he's putting all the final little details back in, including the eyes and all the parts that are needed to create this final piece. Nick is doing final assembly here on the arm. I would say there was approximately 50 pieces to this arm. So you can see here the fingers are articulated, positionable, and yet they're quite flexible, you can see here, even though they look metallic. And the wrist is also articulated, moved from side to side.
What's kind of neat about this one is that, all the other endos, from part 1, 2, and 3, all those were all chrome plated, and this one is just a paint treatment, which I thought was pretty neat. From head to toe, every little nook and cranny that you see in here has to get a black wash on it. And you can tell from where I did do it already, where it looks darker than where I haven't done it on the chest, which is real bright. And then wipe it off and just let the black settle into the lines. And that just pulls out, all the detail. You get to see all the cool lines and all the nice shapes and forms a lot better when you have a black line defining everything for you.
Wanted to introduce you guys to the T800 endoskeleton. This is one of 3 endos that we're going to have on the show. This being the hero. This one will be mostly for lighting for the actual CG walking characters, but every now and then I'm sure we'll get a shot off where we have an insert piece or something of that nature. So that's why we wanted to try to make them as articulated as possible. So if we had to, we could literally have them go in, do an insert shot of an arm coming in or something. We have nice bearings so we can have easy movement in the waist, and the head has a ball and socket joint so we can get all kind of movement out of this. This one's mostly epoxy and some urethane parts. Our stunt one over here, which the guys are hard at work on, has to be a little more pliable. This one's foam. It's a 280 foam. It still has the aluminum armature, so we still get the same articulation out of all the joints. It just doesn't have the rigidity of the Hero one. So if it falls out of the truck, which it's going to do in the film, it's not going to shatter.
And door!
Basically what we're doing is the rest of the crew here is catching this one up to the same level as this. So when they're done, you won't be able to tell them apart.
Then we're doing an old 1984 Arnold recreation of him.
This was all sculpted traditionally the same way in clay, the whole body. It took me about 4 weeks to do. I got as much reference of Arnold as I could, and I sculpted it over a scan of Arnold from, I think, 2002, 2003. So he was in his 50s, so I took that, which gave me all the proportions of Arnold. And then from photo reference, I had to go back in and bulk him back up as he was in 1983. After, I think, he had just finished his last Mr. Olympian. So he was pretty buff at that point. So it was going back in, making all the proportions, all the muscles there, but then going in and mapping all the veins in and making sure it's as accurate as we could make it. This is a sculpture done that we actually did from Terminator 4 that we reworked for this new one. This was Arnold back in 1984. This is based on old life casts that we had and photographs and stuff. And then this is a life cast of Arnold that was taken a few months ago at age 67. So I think he's 38 here and 67 here. It's soft silicone to a certain degree, and then it's rigid foam inside. And then in the stomach, it's deeper, so it can flex and move, and everything can move around naturally. Like we have the neck, and on the day when this is like when it's dead Terminator, we'll pose this in whatever pose we want, and we can lock it off. It took us about 2-3 days to put the endoskeleton inside the head and the chest wounds and all the different various wounds, and then all the hair. The wig is all hand-tied from here back on lace, and then the whole front edge, as you can see, is all punched in one hair at a time. See how fine that is? And then styled and cut. And then all the eyebrows are punched, and the eyelashes are punched and curled as well. I did the whole body, and then the legs are based off the same mold. So I think we're doing 12 pair of legs that are going to have a frozen look, and they're going to be hanging in the factory.
I'm working on Terminator legs here, and we're casting them out of Platsil Gel 10, which is a platinum silicone, non-toxic, and it has been tinted to look like skin. It's a 2-part silicone that, when added together, you'll have a pot life or a working time of about 5 minutes, and it has a very flesh-like feel to it, which makes it perfect for using for legs.
You brush them in layer at a time, and then you build it up to the point where you can put the steel armature in so that it can move, and then you backfill that with a foam so that it's got a nice squishy natural feel to it. We can do about one a day. It takes about probably 6 hours maybe. When the piece comes out of the mold, it obviously has a seam line on it, and our job is just to erase that so it doesn't look fake. The hardest thing to pull is obviously the human eye. You know, if there's a few little dotted line of a seam, the mine actually fills it in. You always see the line, so you really got to work hard to confuse it and hide it. We're just mixing up some material and putting it over the edge and smoothing it out. And then once we've done that, then we go back over and try and match the texture that the sculptors have done.
So what's going on right now is we need to make a stunt mask that looks like Arnold. So we scanned Arnold some time ago, we've cleaned up that scan, and now we've prepped the geometry to be 3D printed. I can open up the hood to give a little bit more insight. So it's printing right now face down at a 16 micron level, which is smaller than one of my piece of hairs. With every layer that goes back and forth, that's one of the layers of the geometry building it up. And as it goes on, those lights cure it to bring it to a hard state. And then once it gets 3D printed, it'll be handed over to a makeup artist / sculptor to bring out even more detail in it. In this scenario, Arnold's going to take about 29 hours to print his full face. So we have just about 29 hours left. It pretty much just started. So tomorrow afternoon, we'll have Arnold in our hands.
And we're also doing lots of prosthetic appliances. This is a big part of the Terminator movies, always have been.
So here we have a map to what the makeup is eventually going to be like. There's 5 different stages to the Arnold makeup. In each new stage, there's anywhere between 3 and 6 new appliances added. So he starts out with the basic Arnold Guardian. Then he'll get a couple of new scars. Then we go to phase B, new scars being added. Stage C, looks like there's 9 more scars being added, all the way up to the point where he becomes the really disfigured Terminator. This is a glue that we glue appliances on the face with, and what we're doing here is we're making a self-sticking appliance. We're taking this liquefied glue and turning it in front of a little bit of heat and air for hours and creaming it to almost like a peanut butter paste. We figured out with our acrylic colors and some flocking the proper color to match to Arnold Schwarzenegger's skin tone. So once this is a nice thick peanut butter, we'll take this and put it into molds that we have outside that I'll show you now. So what Ken's doing here is he's just spatulating the prostate into the mold, making sure there's no air bubbles, getting all the detail captured. And once the prostate's in there, a nice even level, he's going to take the acetate plastic, he's burping out all the airs, and he's going to create a blend edge that'll blend down to Arnold's face. Now the next step is this is going to have to go in the freezer for about an hour and chill. As you can see here, we have dozens of pieces that are in the works. This one's ready to come out. So once these are frozen nice and solid, we carefully peel the mold off. And here's the appliance, but it'll never really go translucent. So what we have to do is we take this appliance, we put it into a convection oven or dehydrator for days. Then once it comes out of the oven, it'll go into our box and it'll get shipped to set for application.
When I look back to what we did back then with a small group of people, it's a classic film. But technically, you keep getting better, and the bar keeps getting raised, and so the standards keep going up. And it's very photoreal now the way the appliances are being done. And then what's genius about it now, what we couldn't do back then, was the blending of the CG with the prosthetics. With prosthetic appliances, you can only build up onto the skin; you can't take away. So what's fantastic, and we did this actually back on T3 for the first time, was removing from the actor, which you can do, you know, utilizing the combination of CG and the appliances. So it's, you know, bringing to bear all the state-of-the-art tricks of the trade to, you know, make this movie really special.